Everyone. In today's episode, I'll discuss the cheapest suburbs worth buying in the Central Coast. It's an interesting topic, and the reason I do it is because a lot of people have reached out to me asking me to do a video on their region. Now, I happen to know a few people that have moved here. Quite a few people from the beaches in the Sutherland Shire actually have moved here. I have a few friends that actually live up there too. So, look, a couple of things I'll go through today is, first of all, the top performers of the Central Coast. Secondly, the factors driving growth. Thirdly, the minimum purchase price. And then finally, the best suburbs on the high end, mid-priced and lower end of the market. Let's get into it. So the Central Coast top performers have really been kind of around the main areas of the Central Coast. So they've been Point Frederick, East Gosford, Avoca Beach, Terrigal, Glenning Valley, Lisarow, Springfield and Carryong. So you'll find a couple of these in your report. So your Aussie Home Loans 25-year report, I think will show you Lisarow. I think it'll show you Carryong too, and maybe Glenning Valley. But all of these suburbs are done about 9% or above on average for about 30 or 40 years or so. So all really good performers. Look, the things that really drive the Central Coast are a few things. So like any market, demographics definitely drive the market. It's definitely a big thing too. A real key thing in the Central Coast is probably unique, I'd say, to a main metropolitan area, particularly on the East Coast, is restriction and supply. Now, the reason I say this is because the Central Coast is kind of all over the shop. Now, there are pockets of the Central Coast, for example, that have mass land. So particularly around the surrounding suburbs of Wyong and Wyong itself, there's a lot of land there. And other areas, I'd say, probably just in from maybe even Foresters Beach. There's quite a lot of land there too. If that ever gets subdivided, that supply and demand ratio will go out. Finally, a few other things as well, is employment hubs. So you need to know where these are on the Central Coast, definitely, and I'll get into that later in this episode. Lifestyle is definitely a thing. Look, beautiful lifestyle in a lot of these areas, and that's what draws people here. Access to facilities is another. Now, obviously, both lifestyle and employment hubs play a part. Then finally, your gentrification. So areas are gentrifying in the Central Coast and have gentrified, and that comes along also with infrastructure. So there's quite a lot that's going in to the Central Coast, and I'm not a fan of new infrastructure, but it will influence the existing infrastructure in certain areas, and that's what I'll get into. Look, in the Central Coast, really, we need to consider what the minimum purchase price would be to get in. Now, it's funny that I mention this because the Central Coast is actually a good area to buy, and you can still pick up properties for, around $700,000. But again, this is suburb specific, so you're not going to be buying in Point Frederick for $700,000. No chance at all, okay? That ship sailed about 15 to 20 years ago. So not in Point Frederick, but you'll find other areas where this is still possible. So anyway, let's get into it. Now, let's start with the high end. So the high end, really, I'm talking about close to $2 million and above. I haven't really given a price guide of this, but I'm talking about kind of your $1.5+ million sort of price bracket, because that's kind of what we're looking at here. Maybe not even 1.5. You could probably get in here for 1.2, 1.3. So the suburb I'll start with is Avoca Beach. So look, Avoca Beach is a beautiful suburb. It has obviously the lake and inlet there, and a very good, beautiful, should I say, suburb and shop front there in the local town centre. But look, Avoca you can still pick up, as I said, for about 1.2 to 1.3 million, but it's kind of known as the northern beaches of the Central Coast. And the reason being is because it's got a very coastal lifestyle whilst having very similar scenery in terms of like a lake, a nice beachfront, and very high sort of hills and cliffs around, like the northern beaches. And it's got a very kind of like towny population. So very popular sort of local surf club, very popular surf culture around there. That's what people are drawn to. And it's not overly far from sort of the main hub of Gosford either, or Terrigal, obviously. So that's what drives people into Avoca. Look, another suburb on the higher end, and this is the most expensive end of the Central Coast, is a suburb called Point Frederick. Now, Point Frederick is the most expensive suburb on the Central Coast, and by quite a way as well. And it's basically right by the Gosford CBD. It's the point basically of the Gosford CBD on Brisbane Water. And you've got these huge dwellings like you can see here that basically front Brisbane Water and all deep waterfronts. And they're on, most of these are on 1,000 metres squared or more. Some of them are even on acreage blocks as well. So they're not overly cheap, as you can understand. But it's known as the Point Piper of the Central Coast. And now the reason it's known this is because it is obviously the most expensive suburb on the Central Coast near the CBD, but also not only that too, it actually performs very well. So Point Frederick has performed at about 9% for about 30 to 40 years now, and it's going to continue to do that. Like you'll see in the future, it's about $2.5 million now. This will be, 5 to 10 million in 10 to 20 years easily. Like no problems at all, especially waterfront dwellings. You get dwellings selling here for above $10 million. And people who aren't from New South Wales won't understand that because, or should I say, know the market well. But the thing is, there's so many suburbs in New South Wales that are very expensive. They're like this suburb you could basically almost buy in, Brighton for in Melbourne. So to give you an idea, that's how expensive it is, but it performs very well at the same time. So if you have that money and you want to live on the Central Coast, it is a good suburb to buy in, definitely. Let's go to mid-tier. So, look, mid-tier I've kind of just considered between 750,000 and about 1.25 million. And because that's kind of your mid-tier of the Central Coast. And the suburb I'm going to discuss is a suburb called East Gosford. Now, this does neighbour Point Frederick, funny enough, and it is one of the better performing suburbs of the Central Coast. And look, the reason for that is because, look, it's ideally situated. And what I mean by that is it's literally right next to the Gosford CBD where all the jobs are, and it's literally on the drive between the CBD and also Terrigal, Avoca, and all the other, should I say, good lifestyle areas like the entrance of the Central Coast. So, look, that does tend to play a big part in why East Gosford does well. And you'll see that just in this location, and this is just a Google Maps image. So you see the Gosford precinct and the Gosford Hospital, West Gosford, sort of industrial state there too. So those are all key job precincts of, should I say, the Central Coast. And then the main road that obviously goes out past Springfield and Greenpoint towards Erina. Erina Fair, by the way, is your kind of main, should I say, shopping area kind of your Gosford region, and very popular. Have some like festivals and events on there too. But that's another reason why East Gosford's a good location. You're near the good schools too. You're not overly far from Central Coast Grammar School. East Gosford Public School. Brisbane Water Secondary College is another one, so good reasons there for it to grow as well. Look, another one that is closer to kind of East Gosford's probably around your $1 million mark. Another suburb that's a bit cheaper, close to your $850,000 to $900,000 mark, is a suburb called Killarney Vale. Now, the reason that Killarney Vale is so good is because it used to actually be a very dodgy suburb about 20 years ago or 30 years ago or so. Now, about that time ago, you used to have about 30% of public housing in the suburb, but now it actually is less than 7%, believe it or not, because most of it's been sold off. So what you'll find here is, look, it first of all fronts Tuggerah Lake, and it actually holds a really nice pocket of it. It is right next to Shelley Beach, which is one of your better surf beaches and better lifestyle sort of area, local lifestyle area, should I say, on the Central Coast. Quite a good, should I say, board riders club, North Shelley there too. But but with that all happening, the area is actually starting to gentrify in terms of the demographics. So what I've done here is I'm showing you, first of all, on the top 2006, and then second of all, on the bottom 2021. So you'll see here that the median weekly household income has actually more than doubled in 15 years. Now that's well above the national average, like comfortably above. And you'll see the median rent's actually also doubled as well. So that's also comfortably above it. And that's what's happening in this area, because you're picking up properties, for like 850,000 that are, literally 5 minutes to the beach. 10 minutes, probably 7 minutes to be honest, to Tuggerah, the main centre of Tuggerah, and probably only half an hour to Gosford as well. So it's well located, and it's only about 20 minutes, probably less, probably 15 to the entrance as well. So look, really well known in the Central Coast. Look, a lot of people avoid it because obviously the back of Bateau Bay is a little bit dodgy still, but lots of Killarney Vale especially are going to do very well into the future. So I suggest buying there. Look, let's get into the lower end, and these are, the cheapest probably suburbs in the Metro Sydney Basin region. So that's Shell Harbour to Newcastle that I would consider buying in. And I'll start with one called Lake Haven. So Lake Haven years ago was, again, like its neighbouring suburb, which still is a bit dodgy, called Gorokan, was known as quite a dodgy area. Now, don't get me wrong, there are pockets that are a touch dodgy, but it's more Gorokan that is. But Lake Haven's kind of like, should I say, west of Tuggerah Lake, centre of the Central Coast. So, look, this is the sort of Lake Haven centre here. There's just the main shopping centre. So you can see it's massive. It's got everything you'd need there, really, and it's, quite a decent suburb. There's actually not much public housing really in the area anymore, and really, you're not even far from Wyong Hospital either. You've got cinemas there too. You've got everything you need. A lot of should I say, businesses there too. So it's actually improving the area, and it actually does front the lake too. So that will increase prices because wealthier properties or wealthier parts of the suburb will create a spillover effect to other suburbs, therefore raise the median price. And it's basically, as I said here, the centre of the coast. So people from the Central Coast call themselves coasties, or they simply call it the coast. So that's the reason I'm saying that. But anyway, that's one suburb. Another actually neighbours it, and it's called Canwall. So Canwall is right next. It's just south really of Lake Haven. It was a suburb that was kind of built about 20 or 30 years ago. It's been there for quite a while. And the thing about Canwall, though, is it's actually got a little bit of a village, and it's mostly a family suburb with only detached homes. So most of the suburb is pretty much all of the suburb really is already built, and continually around the area, wealthier people are moving in. And I'll tell you the reason why. This is just out of basically the New South Wales government's future plan. So that kind of like, should I say, purple and kind of orange areas, those are sort of employment hubs and centres. So if you line up basically where Hamlin Terrace is to the kind of circle of that, it's sort of southeast of it, the circle of the sort of Tuggerah Lake. That's where sort of Canwall is, and it's right between basically your main centres. So these hubs are going to employ a lot of Canwall's residents, and more people are going to move here because it happens to sit between all these hubs. And it's quite well located. It's not far from should I say, Norah Head or Budgie Boy either. So people like those areas quite a lot. So it's definitely an area to consider into the future. Let's just give everyone a word of warning. Look, the Central Coast isn't basically like what everyone thinks of it 30 years ago. A lot of people years ago would have said, oh, it's full of bogans, it's full of, this, it's full of that, full of the other. It's not anymore. There's quite a lot of, should I say, fairly wealthy families and fairly wealthy people, especially retirees moving up there too, that are actually contributing to the economy quite a lot. So here's just a photo of the entrance when the fair's on, and you can see how beautiful it is and how, should I say, lush it is with a lot to do. And that's just the way it is today. And furthermore to that, I'll tell you right now, in the future, Sydney to Newcastle is going to be a mega city, and the Central Coast will have the most development out of any area in all of that sort of Sydney Basin region. And this is just from the Central Coast, basically, future plan. It's on the government website, so everyone can check it out. You'll see all the key activity centres right there, and you'll see this. One of the suburbs I mentioned, Killarney Vale, is between Tuggerah basically and Longjetty and the entrance. So it's one of the main centres, and that's the reason it's going to do so well. So look, this is what's going to happen in the future, and I'd suggest if you have the money and you'd want to live in the Sydney Basin region, really just reach out to me. I can help you with this. I know these areas back to front. So yeah, look, and I really appreciate everyone watching this video, and stick around for future episodes. They'll be of great value to you, and please comment below if you have any sort of episode you'd like to see or any sort of topic you'd like me to cover, because I will do it. But thank you again.